You ruin every difficult conversation before you open your mouth because you believe kindness means comfort. You walk into the room with a plan to soften the blow, to wrap bad news in praise, and to protect the other person from pain. You think this makes you a decent human being. It makes you a coward, and it destroys your credibility. When you pad a hard truth with false pleasantries, the listener senses your hesitation. Their brain registers your nervous behavior as a threat before you finish your opening sentence. They do not hear your gentle words. They scan your face, detect the hidden agenda, and prepare their defenses for an ambush. By the time you deliver your real message, you have forced them into an adversarial posture. Why do people fail at confrontation when they try hardest to be polite? The failure happens because your instincts about social friction are completely wrong. Most people believe that directness causes conflict. In reality, ambiguity causes conflict. Directness only reveals the conflict that already exists. When you hide behind ambiguous language, you force the other person to guess your actual boundaries. Guesswork breeds paranoia. Paranoia breeds defensiveness, and defensiveness kills resolution. Look at how you handle a failing subordinate or an untrustworthy partner. You schedule a meeting. You spend 3 days worrying about their reaction. You sit down across the table and you spend 5 minutes talking about the weather, their weekend, or their recent minor successes. You call this building rapport. The other person calls it a trap. They know you did not book 30 minutes on their calendar to discuss the forecast. They sit there with tight shoulders, waiting for the blade to drop. Here is the operational rule for the first 30 seconds. Deliver the core problem in your very first sentence without an emotional modifier. Do not say, "You are sorry to bring this up." Do not say, "This is hard for you." Your discomfort is irrelevant to the objective reality of the situation. State the headline cleanly. Tell them that their recent work fell below standard, and you must change the operating plan today. Tell them that their conduct in the meeting broke trust, and you need to address the boundary right now. Use flat, neutral vocal tone. Remove all upward inflection at the end of your sentences. An upward inflection turns a statement into a request for permission. You do not need permission to describe reality. The moment you state the headline, stop speaking. This is where almost everyone fails. You speak the hard sentence, you feel the spike of mutual discomfort in the room, and your panic takes control. You start filling the silence with explanations, justifications, and apologies. You say 5 sentences when 1 was enough. Every extra word you add after the core statement acts as an escape route for the listener. They will ignore the main issue and attack your weakest supporting sentence. If you say your report was incomplete, you missed the revenue targets, and you seemed tired during the presentation, they will spend 20 minutes arguing about whether they were tired. They will bring up their sleep schedule, their family stress, and their workload. You have lost control of the conversation because you gave them trivia to fight over. Give them the singular, incontrovertible fact, and then let the silence sit on the table between you. Silence forces the human brain to process reality. When you do not rush to rescue the other person from their discomfort, you force their nervous system to absorb the core message. They may stare at the table. They may breathe heavily. They may look at you with anger. Let them. Discomfort is not damage. It is the physiological friction required for an organism to update its mental model of the world. Now, consider the macro system behind this dynamic. Every human relationship runs on a ledger of operational clarity. When an issue occurs and you fail to name it immediately, you incur emotional debt. Like financial debt, emotional debt compounds over time with high interest. If an employee cuts corners on a Tuesday and you say nothing because you want to keep the peace, you set a new baseline for acceptable performance. When they cut corners again next month and you finally explode out of accumulated frustration, they feel betrayed. From their perspective, their behavior was acceptable for 30 days, and then you changed the rules without warning. Your reluctance to have a small, uncomfortable conversation on Tuesday created a structural catastrophe 3 months later. You do not avoid conflict by remaining silent. You merely defer it to a date where the cost of resolution is 10 times higher. When the other person responds to your headline, they will almost always trigger one of 3 defensive routines: deflection, counterattack, or emotional collapse. You must know how to neutralize each routine without raising your voice. Deflection happens when they shift the blame to external systems or other people. They will tell you the timeline was impossible, the tools were broken, or another department failed them. Do not debate these secondary factors. When you debate a secondary factor, you validate their attempt to move the goalposts. Acknowledge the external factor with a single phrase, then pull the focus straight back to individual ownership. Say, tools fail, but your obligation was to flag the failure 24 hours earlier. Why did you remain silent? This cuts the exit ramp. It separates the uncontrollable environment from the controllable action. Counterattack happens when the person feels their status threatened. They will bring up your past mistakes, your tone, or instances where you acted inconsistently. This is an attempt to turn a performance review into a personal trial. Most people take the bait. They defend their own record, their ego engages, and the conversation becomes a shouting match where nobody learns anything. When attacked, do not defend yourself. Absorb the strike with 0 physical reaction. Say, we can discuss my leadership during my review, but right now we are resolving this specific deliverable. Return to the issue. You do not validate their grievance. You maintain the hierarchy of the current agenda. You teach them that attacking you does not derail the standard. Emotional collapse is the most manipulative routine, even when the person does not do it consciously. They cry, they use hyperbolic self-criticism, or they claim they can do nothing right. This behavior aims to make you feel guilty for stating the truth so that you spend the rest of the meeting comforting them. If you comfort them, they win and the standard dies. If you become angry, they become the victim and the standard dies. The correct response to emotional collapse is patient, unyielding stillness. Hand the mortar or a tissue if needed, but do not retract your words. Do not soften the standard. Wait for the storm to pass. When they regain control, repeat the initial premise word for word. Show them through your endurance that emotional displays do not alter objective requirements. Understand the difference between high standards and hostility. Hostility is personal. It attacks character, uses insults, and seeks to punish. High standards are systemic. They evaluate outcomes, protect the collective mission, and seek to calibrate performance. You must strip all moral judgment from your vocabulary during these conversations. Do not tell a person they are lazy, irresponsible, or dishonest. Those are moral assessments that immediately force the ego into survival mode. Describe actions and consequences in mechanistic terms. Do not say, you are unreliable. Say, you agreed to deliver the contract by Friday at 5. It arrived on Monday morning. The client cancelled the account. The first statement invites an argument about identity. The second statement presents a chronological sequence of cause and effect. You cannot argue with a timeline. When you present facts without adjectives, you leave the other person with no room to hide behind righteous indignation. After you establish the facts and neutralize the initial defensive routines, move immediately into the construction of a binding contract. Most difficult conversations end with vague promises. 2 people feel exhausted from the emotional confrontation, so they agree to do better next time or improve communication. These are useless phrases. They give the illusion of progress while guaranteeing future failure. A resolution requires 3 elements: an exact operational change, a measurable metric, and a specific date for verification. Do not leave the room until the other person defines what they will do differently in their own words. If you tell them the solution, they feel no psychological ownership over it. Ask them, what specific step will you take on Monday to ensure this timeline holds? Listen to their answer. If their answer is vague, reject it immediately. If they say they will work harder, tell them hard work is not a process. Force them to describe the mechanical change in their workflow. When they define a concrete action, set a firm review date on the calendar right then. You must accept that people will not always like you after these conversations. If your primary objective in leadership or relationships is universal affection, you are unfit for authority. Your objective is not to be liked. Your objective is to be trusted, clear, and consistent. People respect a leader who speaks the truth plainly, even when that truth stings. They despise a leader who smiles to their face, avoids hard issues, and then acts with passive-aggressive hostility when expectations fall short. Candor is the highest form of respect you can offer another human being. It assumes they are strong enough to hear the truth and capable enough to adapt to it. When you walk into your next difficult conversation, leave your need for comfort outside the door. Drop the preambles. State the central reality in your opening breath. Embrace the silence that follows, and hold the standard without apology.